But what an exciting time of year. I know not just here, everywhere around the country, especially here in the Southeast is such an exciting time for the coaches, players, the fans, the student body, alumni. Everybody gets so excited about football season and getting ready to kick things off. I know everybody in this building can't wait to get out there on the field. Get out there. You look as players, put in so much work and a lot of work before we get to play a first game again. But the off season, they go through conditioning in the winter, spring ball, conditioning all summer, and training, trying to get bigger, faster, stronger, get their bodies in shape, get ready to go and be improved players. Come in, put the work in training camp. For 12 opportunities. And you work hard in those 12 opportunities, you might be rewarded with a couple more after that. So we're really excited to get things going, to get out there on the field. I know as coaches, one of the biggest things to see who took strides this summer. We haven't been on the field out there to watch anybody do anything with a ball since mid-April. And here we are, it's 30 some days away from kickoff. And since mid-April, we haven't seen anybody with a ball in their hand or doing any football. So it's exciting for us to get back out there on the field and see who's improved this summer.
Questions? David.
I would start out now. You talked in all spring, the quarterbacks would go into fall basically even. Do you still see it that way?
Well, I do, because I haven't seen them, do anything since spring throwing the ball. And I think it's going to be something. I don't think there's anybody that would be happier in knowing who the quarterback's going to be than me. I'd be thrilled to find out who our starting quarterback's going to be. I think it's one of those things to see who's made the improvements over the summer to be the most consistent performer to help us win football games. I think everybody, and you go through spring and you watch and say, wow, these guys can make some extraordinary plays. The biggest thing that we need is who can make the play every single snap. Who can be consistently perform at a very high level. Not look at the spectacular plays they can make. Can they make the average plays consistently? And that's going to be done. I think this summer had a lot to do with who that's going to be. And I don't know who's put the work in this summer to be that consistent performer. I know they have talents to do exceptional things, but that consistent performer. And as soon as, I'd love to make the decision as soon as it defines itself. We'll find out when that'll be. It might be week 1, might be week 2, might be game week. It might not be till October or something. I don't know. But until someone separates themselves, that they're clearly ahead of everybody else, the competition will go on.
Just curious about Brendan Holloway's versatility. We saw him in the run game, pass game last year. What do you expect from him this season? How can you utilize that versatility?
Well, I think a lot more of the same. I think one of the things that helps him with his versatility, and I think will help him in his future playing football beyond Mississippi State. This spring we had some injuries at the receiver position. You see him being able to shift out to the wide receiver position and be very functional out there. I think it makes it just harder for him to defend, especially being a guy that's a fifth-year senior, understands the offense, that we actually can play him at multiple positions. And when the ball gets in his hand, he's a very, very productive player. So I think within game planning for us, allows us to move him around and get a great player of the football a lot of different ways, and can be a difficult matchup for defenses as we move him to different parts of the field.
You mentioned not seeing players since April. How excited are you to see the coaches, especially the new guys? You have a whole new defensive staff. How excited are you to see them working with the players, and what do you expect out of them?
Well, I know coaches, you get fired up because this is what you get excited about, getting back out there on the field. I like our defensive staff, how they've worked together, continuing to grow. I think we've got an excellent group of guys that are as they're learning to work together, are going to continue to grow, continue to improve as individual coaches continue to improve as a coaching staff together. So I know they can't wait to get out there and start coaching the guys up. This is what this is what you love. I don't say this is why you coach, but boy, it's fun to be out there on the field, especially training camp. Once you hit that training camp where, you know, you're coaching ball. You know, school, we got a couple more days of summer school, but then there's that about 10-day window where there's no school, so our players just get to worry about football. You're teaching the game. You're not into a game plan mode and in that crunch of an individual game week. It's just 24/7 football, and it's awesome.
Along those same lines on defense, Coach Sermon said in the spring that he would be multiple, but talked mostly about the 3-4. What you saw in the spring, how did you feel like the personnel adjusted and fit that 3-4?
Well, I think one of the things we're always going to look for, we're going to put, you know, and we talk about as a defensive, when I'm meeting with the defensive staff, is making sure, you know, as coaches, our responsibility is to put guys in the best position to make plays. That's why one of the things you have to be is very multiple. In every phase of your team and within the scheme, because the scheme has to fit the players. And eventually over time you can, you know, within recruiting and you do different things, and whether at every level, NFL, you know, you could draft to have players fit a scheme. But the players always trump the scheme in whatever it is we're doing. I think you watch us, look at us offensively, we've huddled, we've gone no huddle, we've been near the top of the league in rushing, near the top of the league in passing, near the top of the league in time of possession, near the bottom, you know, last in time of possession, because it always fits the players. And I think defensively, we've always been able to do that defensively. You know, we got some great cover corners. We'll play man. You know, if we don't have guys that can lock it down, you play a little more zone, and you got to fit that way. So we're going to be that way. You know, within being in the 3-4, we played a lot of 3-4 last year. So I think guys are comfortable with it on the team, but we're also going to be a lot of 4-3 and make sure that we're putting the right guys on the field to make plays, and you want to have your best players out there.
Are all the signees accounted for, or anybody you still waiting on? Anybody not going to make it?
Everybody's reporting to camp today, so.
So everybody that you signed made it?
Yep.
Okay.
How does preparing for camp and even game planning for games change when you don't have a guy like Dak and you have 4 players? How much does it change?
Well, the game planning is, that's why you'd love to find out who the guy's going to be, because, you know, you always want to build around the strength of that quarterback position. And so I think as we're installing, as we're putting it in, we're not installing anything specific to a quarterback, even though when you get into a game week, we can tighten the package and adjust things towards the strength of whoever the quarterback's going to be. And you know, and I think that is one of the things you look for is, I think, the versatility of all 4 of our quarterbacks give you that flexibility. You know, all 4 of them can throw, all 4 of them can run. You know, so I don't think you're looking at there's not a guy that's not a good runner. So, you know, it doesn't limit you. None of the skill sets of any of the 4 quarterbacks are going to limit what we do. Our job is, once we figure out who the guy is, then to build on, there's no limitations, but just let's build on what they do the best and to be successful.
Dan, I don't know if you've ever had like a 4-man quarterback race going into camp before, but how does it work logistically? Do you give everybody 25% of the snaps, or
That's
is
the
there?
plan. I've had 3.
Right.
I'm trying to think if I've had 4. I've had 2. That's very nerve-wracking. You know, I mean, they don't just wear like the special jersey. I mean, they have like a bubble around them when they go out there. We only have 2. It is, you know, I think that the tricky, Brian Johnson did a great job with it, you know, and I kind of let him take control of that, of making sure we're getting equal evaluations on everybody. And, you know, he spends a lot of time pre-prep, before we even hit the field, who's getting what reps and what rotation. You know, and a lot of times in training camp, we've gone up to 4 deep, you know, reps with 1, 2, 3s, 4s. I've got it set this year for 3. We're going to rotate 3 deep. So each of the quarterbacks are going to get reps with the 1s, with the 2s, and with the 3s. Part of it's going to be, you know, by day, you might get how you perform the previous day. You might get more reps within a certain group. But, you know, I want to see also who can move each group. You know, hey, if you can only execute with the ones on the field, that's a positive. But why, is it because you're with the one other players around you that you're executing, or are you the one that's making it happen? And so I think that's the benefit of getting to see everybody go with each different group out there on the field. Their leadership comes out, their playmaking, their management, their consistency all comes out because they have to execute not just with the one offense, but with the two offense and also the three offense. And at the end of camp, you'd love everybody, or until we've defined it, everybody have 25% of the reps, and so we can make the best evaluation possible.
Coach, back to the defensive side of the ball. With a new coordinator and a new scheme, how long do you give yourselves as coaches to find out which guys can help you on the football field?
Well, I mean, we kind of have a good feel of who can help us. That's why I say that the players trump the scheme. So we're not going to put stuff in schematically that our guys aren't going to be able to execute at a very, very high level. So that's the coach's job. I think coach's job is to make sure you look at your personnel. We know what guys can do well, and make sure we're putting them in a position to succeed.
Coach, what are your thoughts on the new social media regulations as it pertains to recruiting, where you can retweet and like?
You know what? It makes me a lot less nervous scanning through Twitter. Because when you scroll through Twitter, if I accidentally hit a button, at least I didn't create a violation. I think, in today's world, I think a lot of coaches look at things like, oh, now I got to spend all day retweeting in this. I don't know that that's the case, because I don't really pay attention all the time when I put out a tweet who retweets me. Because I'm sure a lot of people retweet some things and not others, and I'm sure there's some positive comments, and I imagine there's lots of negative comments on stuff that I tweet. So I don't pay much attention. I don't know that recruits are going to pay tons of attention to see just always who retweeted them. I think it's a great deal. I think coaches sometimes we get paranoid on one side. It's a great thing to keep us safe, and potentially eliminate needless violations that might occur.
A little bit of a follow-up to Steve. Do you see it as an obligation, like, I gotta scroll through Twitter, and just approach it more organically, whatever you happen to have?
No, not more than I do right now. I guess if someone would say something great about Mississippi State, I'd probably retweet them. Said something great about another school, I doubt I'm going to retweet that one. So I think I don't think it's as big a deal as maybe some people might make it out to be in the big picture of things.
Hey, Coach, in the back.
Hi.
Everything has been talked about with Jefferson in the offseason with off-the-field problems, but what is he going to do on the field that's going to help this defense moving forward?
Well, go play football. I think you look at, and I don't know because he hasn't played football for us yet. But like all of our guys, our guys love playing football. I don't care who you are in this team. That's why you're here. You love to play the game of football. That's kind of your happy area. And so I think for him, I think it'll be a great relief to get out there on the field and get to go play football again. And all of the scrutiny and pressure that he's been put under. He's got to go strap up that helmet for 2.5 hours every day, and some days a little longer. Go out there and play ball, and probably a pretty good release.
When you have the four quarterbacks kind of going on, and I remember Dak saying a couple of years ago, it's all about rhythm. You feel, try to get in a rhythm. How do you balance them getting in a rhythm and not force them looking over their back? Like, oh, I just incompleted a pass, I'm not going to get a rep again.
Yeah, well, that's why I think Brian did a great job of that. The one thing I did, after spring ball, I sat down with each of the four quarterbacks, and I asked each of them for them. Do you think anybody earned that it was hands down the starting quarterback? Not one. All of them said no. I said, do you feel you were given a fair opportunity in the quarterback battle? Every one of them said yes. Now, and they could have just been trying to maybe appease me with their answers, but it was closed door one-on-one meeting with them and say, hey, this is your chance to explain to me of how I'm going to change things going forward into fall camp to give you more of an opportunity, and they all felt like they had a great and equal opportunity. So I think in moving forward, the fact that they already know they make a great play doesn't mean they've won the job, and they make a bad play doesn't mean they've lost the job. I think it means over the course of training camp, they have to play consistently, perform, and at that point, they'll see that, hopefully it defines itself who our guy is. I mean, there are times in spring ball where I thought I'd go out and watch 2 straight practices where I thought, okay, this guy's starting to separate and going to define himself. And the next day he wouldn't perform well, and somebody else would have a great day, and I'm like, okay, it's not quite as defined as I thought it was at this point. And I think they all agreed with that assessment of what happened, and so I'm excited to see who's put the work in to be consistent performer.
Coach, a couple of late signees for you this year, if you could offer your thoughts about them and what your expectations are for the edge receiver position.
Well, it'd be interesting, for us at the with the receiver, with 2 guys when you manage rosters, you're looking at 2 to 3 years in advance, and we expected to be here that aren't here at that position. So that opened up those 2 spots for us for Osiris Mitchell and Reggie Todd, who both of them are guys that kind of came in spring, and it happens every year. You're out there recruiting. Guys become qualified that maybe didn't expect to be qualified. Reggie, in this case, was going to go play basketball, and decided that football was going to be a better route for him. So we felt pretty fortunate. Those are, he's a guy that was really high up on our board last year when we were recruiting him to play football, and then we thought basketball kind of went a different direction. So we're going to see. There's some good young, throw Jamal Couch in the mix at the receiver position right there. There's 3 guys to me that have an opportunity to get on the field just with what's happened. I see going in day 1 as Donald Gray at the X-receiver, at the starting spot. He's got to keep that spot. And had a very productive year last year. But it's going to be interesting to see which one of those 3, like all high school players, come in the transition to college, is not their ability level, whether their ability's ready to go play. It is, how fast they adapt to the college game. I think, all 3 of those young receivers are going to have, they got size, they got skill set, they route running, hands, speed. They have the skill sets. How fast they can learn the offense and how fast they can adapt to the college game and the speed in which it happens will determine who gets on the field first.
I'm just curious, I'm interested in your thoughts on how has college football changed maybe the last 5, 10 years of your time at Mississippi State, or has it?
But I think it's changed a lot in certain ways. I think some of the scrutiny of the game and how people view the scrutiny of the game has changed a little bit. I think that has happened. I don't recall, in the past as much national scrutiny on the health issues in the game of college football. And I think I'd share this with you. I think as coaches, and this often gets underlooked, I constantly have number one thing that we look at is player safety. Every schedule, every design, every rest period, every drill, making sure our guys are not just safe, healthy, grow, develop, and are prepared, ready to go play in a game. I don't think the coach's view on that, I think a national scrutiny on that has changed. I don't recall when I became the head coach that, the Justice Department would be heavily involved in trying to regulate NCAA rules of what goes on. I think the attention and the scrutiny within the game has greatly intensified over the last 8 years. The game itself, I don't know if it's changed a whole lot. The game to me always goes through cycles, right? And it's You know, whether you, and when I talk about that, you know, schematic cycles. Hey, everybody wants big receivers. No, now they want fast receivers. I want tall corners. No, I want fast corners. Hey, we're going to be a zone defense. No, it's all man-to-man now out there on the edge. You know, hey, it's up-tempo, no huddle spread. Hey, it's huddle power football. The game goes in cycles. And I think a lot of that is innovation. It's trying to stay ahead of the curve. You know, if defenses are all set to only defend the spread, you know, you're a good mix-up if you're a power football team. You know, so I think it's everybody, and it's fitting the different personalities to the schools, and I think the coaches fitting their roster to their scheme and doing what the players do best. So I think that part of it is always evolving, always changing. The cycle's always going, so that's never going to stop. But the other parts are probably the biggest changes I've seen.
You talked about the wide receivers a little bit. I was curious about your redshirt freshmen and Spivey, Thomas, and Mixon. Just what are your thoughts on them, and what do you like about those three?
Well, I want to see, you know, again, they've got a year under their belt to learn. Production, consistent performance is one. I know, you look at Mixon, and I know he's a guy that certainly is electric. When the ball gets in his hands, he is an electric player. You know, was a high school running back, so unlike kind of the other two, you played a little bit more receiver. You know, he goes into that category of a guy, like we've had a lot of success with guys in the past, of learning the position. You know, like the Gabe Miles, Malik Deer, to a point of learning how to be a wide receiver, not just a great playmaker. And Keith's in that role, but I know he's a guy that you watch him develop his receiver skills, have improved in route running and beating in releases and stalk blocking, things he needs to do every down. But the one thing I can't wait to do is put the ball in his hands and let him go, because he can. When the ball's in his hands, exciting things happen.
Along those same lines, with the lack of wide receiver depth in the spring, you put Jamal over there for a little bit. How has that situation played out? You expect him on defense?
Well, I think, you know what, we had meetings, and he's going to go back to defense now, and a lot of that had to do with the signing of those two other receivers. You know, I mean, we sat down, and part of the decision was what direction we want him to go into the future, you know, which opened up potential spots. You know, I mean, to be honest with you, we were looking, would there be a late DB signee that if we found somebody that fit, we looked at that. Is it a late receiver signee, and meeting with him and the staff and looking at the future for him, we decided, you know, he's going to go defense, which then shifted that roster spot over to offense that opened the opportunity for our two guys that are now here with the team.
With so much inexperience at the tight end position, what are you hoping to see from that group over this next month of camp?
Well, it's going to be interesting. You know, fortunately for us, you got Justin Johnson, got a lot of experience last year, and I mean, we force-fed him to get out there. So, you know, he's a guy, even though he's a true sophomore, is kind of the leader of that room. It'll be interesting to see for us. Farad Green, I think, has really grown and taken some steps forward now of knowing. You know, I guess coming in last year as a blank slate, trying to figure it out through spring, really just trying to figure it out again. I think there's going to be a big step forward for him in the comfort level of learning the offense and a little bit more confident on the field, because he has a great skill set for us at tight end. You know, and the other one is going to be Jordan Thomas. To see, you know, where he is. Aaron Hammaker has been on the team, does a great job for us. He's got a skill set that we can use and is going to be in there. But Jordan's going to be kind of the wild card, because he's a big athletic guy that's a mismatch problem for defenses with his size and speed. That we got to see how fast he picks up the game, because I think he'd be a great weapon for us.
I know you already talked about quarterbacks a good bit, but obviously,
everybody loves talking, right? Nobody really asked any quarterback questions last year, so we can get them all in this show.
Obviously, three of those guys won't win the job, and if it's Nick or Elijah or Tiano, it'll be a guy that could be your starter for 3 or 4 years, possibly. Is it a situation where you see the guys that don't win the job? Would it surprise you if one of those guys looked for another opportunity elsewhere?
Not at all. You know, and I think if you know our program, we have very little attrition within our program since I've been here. But But I think that's one of those positions that it's difficult because there's one quarterback. If you're not starting at receiver, if you're the 2 wide receiver, that means you play 30 plays a game instead of 40 plays a game. Really not that whole lot of a difference in what goes on. You know, I think that, you know, there's a lot of positions where the starter, when we're in the locker room getting dressed, they put his picture on the Jumbotron. That's about the difference between the first and second string guy in a lot of positions on our roster. So I don't think it is. The quarterback is a unique position that way. And it wouldn't surprise me, because guys want to play. And they're looking and saying, hey, if this guy's the starter, the guy to me that's not in that category is Nick Tiano, just because he's learning. You know, I think if he's not the starter this year, doesn't mean he won't be the starter next year. You know what I mean? Because of his deal, and I guess everybody's in that role. You know, it brings me back to a guy named Brett Elliott that coached here, is now offense coordinator over in Texas State. Played for me at the University of Utah, was our starter, got hurt. Alex Smith came in the game. That season, he was out for 4 weeks, came back as the backup. He and I met after the season and said, you're going to have every opportunity to go win that job back. And he said, Coach, I appreciate it. Alex, really good football player. He was next year left to be the first pick in the NFL draft. And he said, I never want to be in a position where I have to, you know, I want to play. And I don't want to be out there if my play determines on one of my good friends, maybe he gets hurt. I never even want to think in that terms. He ended up leaving, going to Linfield College, and was a first-team All-American, won the Division III Heisman, and he had a great career. So it's a very different understanding of the quarterback position than other positions, and it wouldn't surprise me if that happened. And to be honest with you, I'd be supportive of helping those guys any way I could, because they want to be in a position to go play.
Coach, with the larger guys like Dak and Chris Jones, Dorian Wilson, guys who were big faces of this program in camp with that leadership transition within the team, is that something you kind of want to see kind of just be taken in stride, or you want to see more guys step out vocally to try and claim those spots?
Well, I think you want to see guys step out and be great vocal leaders and see who those guys are going to be. But I think we have, you know, there's a bunch of them that have been in that position, maybe not the position. I think one of the things you see, we might have more leaders than we've had. When you have a guy like a Dak Prescott, who's such an alpha dog, not just on the offense, really the whole team. I don't know that you expect one person to replace that. You have multiple people go replace that. And I don't know that that's not a better thing than having multiple guys, because everybody looks at it and brings a little something different to the table as a leader. So I think we have some guys that have great leadership qualities, and you want to see that now have the experience where they're going to be comfortable to step up into that role. And we want to see how they embrace that going into training camp, because I think there's guys that are really excited to become leaders of the team. You know, I meet with guys like a Brandon Bryant, very excited to be a leader of the defense. You know, on the offensive side of the ball, when you look at Shumpert and Holloway and Fred Ross, who, you know, didn't have to be, they had Dak, but now I think they're excited to get into those roles of being leaders. And so I think it's a great opportunity, and I think we have a lot of guys excited to go do that.
Coach, when you're talking about the quarterback position and you're looking for that new quarterback, and you have young wide receivers, I mean, you have some older guys like Ross, but do you lean on the receiving core or the offensive line to kind of give you a sense of what their quarterback is like in the huddle, and, you know, if he has those leadership qualities?
Well, I think we're around it at practice all the time. You know, I know games are a little different, and we got to, you know, and see that, which is the hardest thing, but you want to try to create game situations in practice for them. Because I'm standing right there. That's the one thing I pay attention is to, and they know that as demeanor. I mean, the first thing I want to see is not what you did during your 6-play series. What did you do when that series ended? You know, did you just kind of, okay, get a drink, go stand off by yourself? Or are you talking to guys, you coaching guys up, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that? But I also put a lot on the receivers. You know, I mean, we have some veteran receivers that are back that they have to take the initiative to do that. You know, a Fred Ross, a Donald Gray, and Gabe Miles played a bunch of football for us now. they have to take the initiatives also to the quarterback to make sure, and the running backs. You know, I mean, if a ball touches the ground on a ball exchange, you know, I expect the quarterback, in my mind, is the guy I want to get fixed. You have guys like Shumpert and Holloway that have played an awful lot of football. You know, I expect them to also take on a leadership role to say, hey, you know, I got to get with the quarterback to help show him and explain to him what needs to get done in that situation. I mean, because they're a veteran player. I think Brandon Holloway is in all-purpose yards is the second leading returner in the country. Is that right? So in all of college football, he's the second all-purpose yards returning to play this year. So, you know, it's a great opportunity for him to take pressure and leadership pressure and a leadership role to help guide the quarterbacks on what they need to be doing.
With